Nothing Personal starts in 30 seconds. It's just business. This is Nothing Personal.
Here you go.
Outbid. That's the Nothing Personal word of the day. It is Tuesday, November 19th, 2024, and there is major activity happening on the left coast as we speak. Scott Boras is in an undisclosed location. He's got the codes. He's bringing in teams one at a time. Mets, Yankees, Red Sox, Dodgers on deck. Each team trying to outbid the other, following a detailed presentation and meeting. Do you know how this meeting goes? Because it's a good one. Scott comes in. He's got a bunch of people with him, showing Juan Soto that he's dedicated time and resources to getting Juan Soto this record-breaking deal that he's going to get. They have a big conference room. They don't want to do it on the Boras campus. Too much paparazzi. Too much fanfare. Of course, it's easy to know where the disclosed location is when it's disclosed by the Boras Corporation, but I digress. So, you got a bunch of people. They walk in the room. Juan's there. Maybe he brings someone. Maybe he doesn't. Then they let in the teams. In comes, which is pretty amazing, you got to bring your manager. For whatever reason, it's critical. You bring the owner, the team president, the general manager. You bring some sort of book that talks about all of the ways that Juan Soto is going to help your team. And you match books with the Boras book, which shows all the different ways that he's going to help your team. And there's a book off. Shall we go through the book? Please turn to page 12. Juan, if you don't mind. Page 12 will show you your stream of payments. Here's my idea. How about $50 million a year for 50 years? What do you say? Are you in? Do you think the fantasy of these meetings, and I'm just picturing all the reports about the Mets meeting, and they come with Steve Cohen and Carlos Mendoza and David Stearns. The Red Sox brought Tom Werner, their great owner, and Craig Breslow and Sam Kennedy, their president. You think they sort of walk in, say, hi, how you doing? Good to see you. Good to meet you, Juan. They know him. Good to see you again, Scott. They know him. Well, where do you want to start? The way the meetings start is it's on the team to say to the player, we want you. But we're in the meeting. There wouldn't be a meeting if we didn't want you. I think it's a waste of time. The way I like to start free agent meetings, and I had quite a few of them, here's the money. This is what we have offering. We have it right here in writing. We're ready to present you an offer. But teams are scared of that because they want to do the GTKY. And in the normal world, I like getting to know you. It's a good one. Like if you're on a date or you're thinking about maybe doing business, maybe a $100,000 sales deal. I want to get to know you. Know your customer. That's not what's going on when you are the number one free agent in baseball, when you have been planning this free agency literally since the day you were in the big leagues with the Washington Nationals. I don't want to waste your time or mine with any idle chit-chat. Juan, I just wanted to give you a short video of the city of Boston, and I'd like to show you around some neighborhoods because that's going to be dispositive. Some great places in Boston where you can buy a house. And here's Manny who told you where he lived, and he had the best time ever. Juan, if you come to the Dodgers, oy vey, we can have you doing Hollywood productions. Look at this spot in Brentwood. Look at this mansion. You're going to be living next to Rob Lowe. The Kardashians. Hey, Juan, here's what's going to happen. You're going to come to the Yankees, and you're going to be in Monument Park. We want to show you a picture. Here's a picture. You played. You were right there, but we want to just show you. You're going to be there right next to the all-time greats, going into the Hall of Fame with the NY, the pinstripes. Are you kidding me? Do teams really think that Scott Boras gives a flying rat's tinker's damn about any of this? It's ridiculous. Oh, we have a great school system. Thank you, Mike Hampton. Hey, I love your minor league system. Thank you, Manny Machado. It's a bunch of horse hockey. It's all about which team is going to outbid which team, and that's what Boras is doing during the meeting. He's saying, it's really good that you're here, but it's going to take a record-breaking offer, and then if we like you, we'll get back to you with what you have to beat, because we're going to keep going back and forth between the Mets, Yankees, and Dodgers. And we're going to throw in the Phillies and the Red Sox and maybe the Blue Jays. And we're going to go back and forth like it's an auction on eBay. It might as well be that. I have a way better way. And this is, Coca, this is something crazy. But that's all it is. Why not do an open auction? The way the Baltimore Orioles were sold back in the early 90s to Peter Angelos. Give everyone a paddle. You can do it like the NBA lottery. You can bring in Jamie Gertz if you want. You can bring in anyone you want on the Mets. Bring in Bobby Bonilla. Give them a paddle. $500 million over 10 years. Done. $550 over 10. What's that game? Liar's Poker, if you've ever read the book or played the game. 4 8s. 5 2s. That's what the teams will do going back and forth. 661 with only 10% deferred present value of 475 over 12 years. Oh, I'm going to go better. I'm going to go 666 because we're dealing with the devil anyway. We might as well just lean into it. We will defer, but we're going to use a discount rate of 4%. I just find the whole thing funny. But there's a mystery team. Thank heavens. Michael Kay, our friend of the show, went on his show or a show. I think it was his show. He said he thinks the Mets are going to offer $50 million more than the Yankees. I'm not sure where that number comes from. He may have the scoop, an investigative journalist. I think it's more likely that Steve Cohen in the meeting said, hey, great to meet you. I want to tell you that getting to Queens is simple. There's barely any traffic on the RFK bridge heading right to the Grand Central. You'll be there in a jiff. And if you want, we'll buy you a 7 train. And we'll hold it. We've got the chairman of the MTA right here. You can have your own 7 train. There won't be any people around. Whenever you want to get to the game, we'll stop traffic. Police escort, no problem. You know you can get your own police escort. You just have to pay for it. Police escorts are available to be gotten. Maybe that's how Juan will get to Citi Field. What if he wants to go early to the new casino? Or maybe he wants to get his car fixed. I think it's not impossible that Steve Cohen said, hey, Scotty boy, I love you, man. Just let me know whatever these guys bid. Do they not know that Scott Boras did this with A-Rod? And Tom Hicks said, hey, whatever is bid, we'll go over it. And then Scott Boras made up a bid by the Braves. And then Tom Hicks said, oh, I'm going to beat that with 200 and what was it, Coca? 251 or 262, whatever that crazy deal was with A-Rod where they had to trade him immediately. After a couple years, couldn't afford it, didn't win. Can you imagine having the best player in baseball and not winning? That seems crazy. If you're going to have the best player, then you're going to make the playoffs every single year. And you're going to win a bunch of World Series. Imagine having 2 of the top players in baseball. Wow, that's got to be rings galore. So Steve Cohen just says, all right, we're good to go. Let me know. Call whenever you want. We're not doing an expiring offer. God forbid we ever get any leverage. Why would we want leverage? So just let us know. So then Scott will call and say, all right, I got 660. I got it. So it's going to be 710, right? We got a deal at 710. Hold on. Let me get back to you. Hey, Mark and Stan and Andrew Freeman, how do you feel about 662, baby? Stevie, we're at 662. No problem. You really think that's how it's going to happen? I don't think they're in any rush to sign either. It's too good. Too many media cycles that Scott Boras is getting, trying to make up for last off season when he crashed and burned and ended up not being the agent that everyone still may have thought he was in public due to his PR appearances. But at the end of the day, he's going to take full advantage of this media cycle. What, of course, makes me laugh is that either way, this is a Major League Baseball issue. Because if you've got the Mets, Yankees, or Dodgers as the three finalists, and let's assume that he's going to one of those three teams, that is going to put an even larger spotlight on the reality that there is a disparity that is growing larger and larger between large and small payroll teams. And it's going to be there's going to be a reckoning, and it's the reckoning we've talked about on this show. The reckoning that will manifest itself in the next collective bargaining negotiations, which are coming up at the end of this coming year, which frankly have already started, truthfully, with all the positioning between the union and the players. I wonder if the Dodgers, when they meet, will they use Ohtani? I think they'll have Ohtani come in and say, hey, listen, I did this for you. I did a $70 million deal, $2 million now, $68 million deferred, so the Dodgers would have money for you, Juan. Let's go in the lineup. Can you imagine? We've got me leading off. I can't imagine that'll continue, but I guess it will. And then we're going to go with Betts and you, but you should be the number 2 hole hitter. So maybe it's me and then you and then Betts and then Freeman. And then maybe they'll still sign Teoscar. The whole thing is a nightmare for every team. Juan Soto is on the Hall of Fame path. I think we'd all agree with that. There's something about the path that happens when your career starts and after 5 years, and all sorts of great statistical analysis goes into who's on track, who's not on track, which current players will be in the Hall of Fame. It's always a thing. Players do like seeing their name on it, but they don't really give it much credence because you need a full career. And you need to be the best of the best over a full career. The Hall of Fame ballot was announced yesterday, and it is an honor just to be on the ballot. It is one of those things that when you speak to a player, and I had so many conversations with Conine about this, where he knew he was a one and done, was not going to get 5%. Therefore, if you don't get 5% of the votes by the writers in the BBWAA, then you're off the ballot the next year, and that's it. You can never be considered again until the Eras Committee much later, and most players are not considered for that. But what Conine would tell you, correctly so, is, wow, amazing. Like that is, I never dreamt that I would be on the ballot. And that's a very small percentage of players. And the ballot that came out has a bunch of players who were on Marlins teams that I was a part of. Fernando Rodney, I'm happy for him. He's likely a one and done. How about Hanley Ramirez on the ballot? Hanley should have been a Hall of Famer. He's not going to be. He's got a good chance to stay on the ballot, actually. I believe he will get over 5%. People may not remember because of some issues he had in the clubhouse and off the field. And I don't mean any sort of terrible issues, the Bauer type stuff. I'm talking about just he wasn't the most popular clubhouse guy, but he was so good. I never had an issue with him. Well, I had issues with him, but I was able to get through them. He was just fantastic. If you don't remember Hanley, go back and look at some highlights. Just one of the best Marlins of all time. And of course, CC Sabathia is on the ballot for the first time. People assume he's a Hall of Famer, a first ballot Hall of Famer. Not sure that he is. As a matter of fact, I would tell you that it's likely not going to be him as a first balloter. It would be great for the Hall of Fame to have him this induction ceremony because you're going to get so many people from Japan. And then if you can add a Yankee to that, which is CC Sabathia, though I will always associate him as a Indian and a Brewer, a Guardian now. Billy Wagner, the lefty closer in his 10th and final year. I had a conversation with Tim Raines about this. When you're going into your 10th and final year, how that makes you feel when you get in And Andre Dawson talked to me about this too and said, listen, doesn't matter whether it's first ballot, third ballot, eighth ballot, or 10th ballot, knowing that you are forever enshrined in Cooperstown, that's the reward where you know that your legacy lives on, your plaque lives on forever. And it's not that the wait is made better. Remember, Pete Rose's view was, don't do it after I'm dead. I want to do it when I can enjoy it when I'm alive. I assure you that Billy Wagner looks at his 10th year. He's not an old guy, and he says that would be tremendous. And I think he is going to get it. If you don't remember him as a lefty closer back when throwing 100 was not common and you had to face him, it was an 8-inning game. You were losing the game. People are upset that he has a bad postseason ERA. Someone made that argument, Coca, this morning to me on a show. And I will say this. Clayton Kershaw is a first ballot Hall of Famer, and he's a never ballot postseason player. But he's going to be a first ballot Hall of Famer. And that leaves us with our friend Ichiro. I could do a whole show just about Ichiro. I'm not going to today. The announcement will come January 21st. Ichiro will get into the Hall of Fame. I have a wait to see pending, Coca. I believe that he will be the first ever unanimous position player, joining Mariano Rivera, the only other unanimous player, but he's a pitcher, obviously. Ichiro deserves to be on every ballot. Ichiro is the greatest player, all-around player that I ever had the pleasure of being around. Every tool. Ichiro has a relationship with Cooperstown that is closer and more important than any other player in the history of baseball. He's visited Cooperstown as an active player more than any other player. Cooperstown means more to him. He has so much of his equipment that he's donated already. And I believe his estate plan, which I hope doesn't happen for 100 years, calls for all of his stuff to be donated to Cooperstown, though I don't assume that includes the kitchen table or the living room couch, but it may. You could always use some furniture. That is the true drama around this Hall of Fame ballot. Can't wait to see how it unravels on January 21st at 6 p.m. sharp. Livy Dunn won Rookie of the Year yesterday, which was very exciting for Major League Baseball, very exciting for all the demographics. When it was said that she had won, she was on TV and did a live interview. Super excited, smiling ear to ear. She was with her boyfriend, this guy named Paul, and he didn't say much after. He was just happy for her. There was not really much conversation about what he does for a living. It was all about Livy's happiness. My God, have you ever seen a bigger meme happen live than Paul Skenes' reaction to winning Rookie of the Year? Go look at it. Do we have that video, Coca? I didn't ask you for it, so my guess is we don't, which is funny because during the pre-show prep, it would have been good if I had said, hey, can we play a video of Paul Skenes winning Rookie of the Year live on TV and watching Livy Dunn celebrate while he sits there stone cold sober, not moving? Isn't a meme a thing? Coca's asked me what a meme is. Isn't that a thing where it's a meme? Dang it. Coca says to me, can I bring you a little inside our show? David, stop trying to be cool. You're not cool. You're the opposite. You're a middle-aged, uncool guy. I'm trying to be relatable here. That's why I have the blazer on. It's a meme, for crying out loud. Congratulations, Paul. I was silly enough to choose Jackson Merrill before the season started as Rookie of the Year. I even thought he'd win it because he had such an unbelievable year. There is no reason that Skenes won Rookie of the Year over Jackson Merrill. If you had to give me a choice last year who I would rather have had, it was Jackson Merrill. Paul Skenes is a dominant pitcher right now, no question. But I don't believe he had the bulk required, and I am the celebrant of a Rookie of the Year who didn't have all that much bulk either. So I get it. But for MLB, there was no question. They needed Paul Skenes to win Rookie of the Year. They're going to milk that guy. Do you think that when Paul and Livy go to bed at night, whether they're in separate rooms or separate homes, do you think they text each other and say, hey, we got to keep going. We got to keep going. This is so good. We're bringing in people men, women, teens, tweens. We got them all. Luis Gil won in a tight race in the American League. The Cowboys stink. If it weren't for the numbers, which I'd like to hear from the audience, if you don't mind, why is it that when we talk the Cowboys, that generates tremendous engagement and numbers on a scene by scene or segment by segment comparative basis? Why is that? Who's still interested in the Cowboys? How do I make them relevant when they are the only team in all of major professional sports to not win a home game in 2024? Please understand that stat. Every NBA team, every baseball team, every NFL team, and every NHL team has won a home game this year. The Cowboys have not in all of 2024. They've been outscored by over 100 points at home. They're down by 20. You just look around. Oh, we're down 20. Stuff is falling from the roof. My worst nightmare. Do you know a quick side story, Coca? And this is going to hurt all the other stuff we have to do in the show, but I do want to tell you this. The roof is built on the ground, and then it's lifted up on its trusses. So first you put the rebar in, then you build the roof, basically the roof poles, and then you lift the roof up in different parts. You build it and lift it. And part of the building the roof, there's a ton of steel, and the steel gets placed. And I always was checking the steel. It sounds crazy because, of course, I'm not any sort of inspector, but we had team inspectors, we had county inspectors, there were public, private, we had just tons of people inspecting everything because you had to get inspections throughout the course of building a ballpark. And I remember telling our head of ballpark development, a guy named Claude, who's the number one ballpark developer to me in the country, having brought our ballpark in under budget and on time, which is just unheard of. And that's only 12 years ago that it opened, but unheard of to this day and before that day. Secret, when you raise the budget in the middle of construction, you can't then say it was built on budget when you build it to that second number. Anyway, so when I went skydiving, I've gone 3 times. I am obsessed about checking my connections because I've got a guy on my back or a woman on my back, although I think I'm 3 for 3 in men doing it. And you're checking the connections because you don't actually have the parachute. So I'm checking and checking and checking. And then when the door opens and you're sort of out, in, out, and you fall out of the plane, you're just saying, I hope this is connected. Secondarily, I hope the parachute opens. I remember feeling that way with the steel beams on the roof. I wanted to make sure that everything was connected because once it's hoisted up, you really don't want roof debris falling because it's huge pieces of steel. Before the Cowboys game yesterday, a slab of steel fell off the roof, and I'm only laughing because no one got hurt. It's not funny. Let me actually do that again so that doesn't get aggregated anyway. 4869. In what could have been a catastrophic situation with life-threatening injury, a piece of steel fell off the roof of AT&T Stadium in Dallas. There was a second piece that fell that didn't make it all the way to the ground. And before the game could start last night, they had to basically tie that piece of steel down to another part of the roof in order for the NFL to allow the game to go on. And I was thinking to myself that Jerry Jones is watching that, saying that this is the best part of my day because now I have to watch this team I put together who can't win, won't win, aren't going to win, and I'm going to have to fire the coach and figure out who else I can blame. But then after another horrific effort that cost us a pick of the day because of our idiocy, thinking that the Cowboys would win a game, he actually met the media and was asked, hey, do you think your coach has lost the locker room? I love that question. That's only asked when the team is losing. It's never asked when the team's winning. I've got examples of winning teams where the manager definitely lost the clubhouse, but the team's winning. You don't need a coach to have the clubhouse. It's my favorite thing when people get hired. I'm here for the players. I'm going to call them all and have a good relationship with them. I'm going to listen to them. Jerry Jones said losing the team, that sort of conversation, it's overblown. And I'm rare and mostly reticent to agree with Jerry Jones, but he's exactly right. The reason the team is losing is not because Mike McCarthy has lost the clubhouse. That's overblown. Jerry said that. He had a bunch of quotes just explaining that our guys are professional. They just don't execute the plays right. They're not giving up. He actually went on a whole diatribe of how his team is not giving up, to which I say, if you're a media member listening to that, the follow-up is, well, if Mike McCarthy hasn't lost the clubhouse and the players haven't given up, there's only one thing left. They all stink. Who put the team together? How can there not be that sort of follow-up? I wonder what it is that the Cowboys will do following this loss. 34-10 to the Texans. I assume that Jerry Jones will come into work today. Probably doesn't come in after a night game like this. He'll work remotely. Talk to Steven, his son. Maybe call up Mike. And they will basically convince themselves that everything's fine. I'm the king of that running a team. I can talk myself into anything. I can talk myself into 10 knots, or I can talk myself into a clean string that goes coast to coast. I can look at the same game you look at and hear all of the noise around the fact that my pitcher stinks and I have no hitting, and I can walk into the owner's office and into the manager and say, listen, we got the pieces. The facts of the matter is the Cowboys don't deserve, just like the Jets don't, they don't deserve to be in national windows anymore. It's a disgrace that we have to watch this team. Can you imagine we have to watch the Giants and Cowboys on Thanksgiving? It's enough to make me throw up my turkey that I'm not going to eat. Meanwhile, just when you think and hope that the Cowboys can be flexed out so we don't have to deal with them, word came out that the Week 14 game, which is only in 3 weeks from yesterday, that they've got to show the Cowboys and the Bengals, two teams that will be out of it, because ESPN is doing an alt cast. And there's been all sorts of preparation. I guess it's okay. I lived my whole childhood without flex games. We saw crap games and we still watched them. That's the beauty of the NFL, I guess. So the Cowboys have 3 more chances to win this year. They're going to have to beat the Giants or the Bengals or the Buccaneers. Can you imagine a scenario? This is too good, Coca. I mean, it's never going to happen. If the Cowboys lose to the Giants, Bengals, and Buccaneers and finish the season winless at home, I'm going to go out on a limb here, and I'm going to make this official. Here we go. Wait to see. If the Cowboys end this season winless, Jerry Jones will fire Jerry Jones. I'm just going to go ahead and say it. The owner will fire the GM. The coach won't be enough. He will bring in someone as the football person, the head of football operations, sort of like a Parcells, except he'll really have an opportunity to do it. So, the Commanders, that's a good point. So that means that he's got 4 more home games, but the Commanders he plays in 2025. So this way to see, Coca, to make it official, it's not going winless in 24. It's losing every home game you play this season. So yes, we have to count the Commanders. So the Cowboys have to lose their last 4 home games for that way to see to be in effect. Put it in the document on davidsamsonpodcast.com, where you can find all the way to sees and all the picks of the day and everything you want, all the movies I watch, etc. My top 100. If the Cowboys go winless at home, Jerry Jones will fire Jerry Jones. That'll be a little piece of something, something. All right, when we come back, we're going to review a movie, and then we're going to talk something that happened in baseball that is a very interesting day today, that people are focused on St. Petersburg, and their fingers and toes are crossed, and they're holding the beads. We'll tell you why right after the break. Welcome back to Nothing Personal. It's David Samson, live 8 a.m. on YouTube, Nothing Personal with David Samson. Please subscribe and enjoy the videos. Enjoy our live show every day. Get into the chat. We're also on the DraftKings Network. We're also available to listen. You may be listening, in which case you don't see what I'm doing right now. That's okay. Can we please take a minute and talk about this movie? Have you seen it, Coca? A movie called Between the Temples. I watch a movie every day. I've told you of my love for Cat Stevens. I've told you of my love for Harold and Maude. You know of my love of Princess Bride. Good luck storming the castle. Carol Kane and Billy Crystal in that great scene where they try to bring Wesley back to life. Carol Kane's in a new movie with Jason Schwartzman. It is a Harold and Maude type movie. Jason Schwartzman is a younger man. He has a thing for Carol Kane, who's an older woman. This is a quirky movie. It's not gross. It's not disturbing. It's not difficult to watch. It's beautiful to watch. It's a movie about a cantor who's trying to figure it out. It doesn't even matter that he's a cantor. It's a part of the movie. That's sort of the framework, is that Carol Kane, as an older woman, wants to get a bat mitzvah. But the fact is, the core of the movie, it's my kind of movie. It's a relationship movie. There are beautiful single women who want to be set up with the cantor, and he has eyes for Carol Kane. Spoiler alert, he falls in love with her. I can't tell you how it ends, because then you won't watch the movie. Between the Temples. You know that's a double entendre, right? Between the Temples, because he's a cantor, so it could be about temples as in a place of worship, or it's between your temples, as in what's going on inside your brain and what's going inside her brain, and whether or not that's more important than the body. Check it out. You may also want to check out Daikin Park. I'm never going to remember that, Coca. Minute Maid Park in Houston is gone. It will have its third name. Enron Field. Nope, that didn't work out. Minute Maid Park. That worked out great. PepsiCo, as the sponsor, wanted to pump up its Minute Maid brands. The juice. Tropicana Field. Minute Maid. Of course, it could be a Coke product. Do you know? Is it Coke or is it Pepsi? Who owns Minute Maid? What makes me smile is that when naming rights deals come to an end, you have a bunch of corporate salespeople, and it goes all the way up to the president. And you're trying to figure out how we're going to replace this. But the strange thing about what's going on with Minute Maid is that the deal wasn't over. They had a 28-year deal that was signed in 2002. Remember, that was the quick deal that came after Enron happened, the fall of Enron. And baseball informed them, and everybody informed them they had to remove Enron from their name. And then up sprouted Minute Maid with, all the oranges on the train, that whole thing. Why did that deal fall apart? Did Minute Maid want out of it early? Did Houston want out of it early? Is Houston trying to get extra money right now so they can make a run at Alex Bregman? Maybe they want to retain him. Maybe they want to give him more than Matt Chapman got in order to make Boras even a bigger hero. It's really all quite unclear to me. I just know that Daikin came in and they did like a 15-year deal. And now all of a sudden, there's a new name. It's complicated when a stadium changes names. It is a 7-figure plus expense to change all the signage. It's a little known fact. When you're negotiating naming rights deals or any sort of sponsorship deal, you have to include, it's like a buyer's premium on an auction. Hey, yeah, you can have the naming rights, but you also got to pay to have the installation done. And sometimes the company just says, forget it. You pay, team. And the team's like, no, I don't want to pay for all that. Are they just going to take the oranges out of the train? I think Minute Maid's going to stay a sponsor. So maybe they'll just pay less money and still be in the train. Let's talk about, if you don't mind, I want to quickly go over the pick of the day before I get to what's going on that is so important in baseball today that's going to require a bit of conversation. We lost both picks yesterday. We lost the Cowboys +7. They stink. We lost the Sixers +3. Do you know the Sixers? If I asked you who's the worst team in basketball, would you know off the top of your head? Would you know that the Sixers are tied with the Wizards for the worst record in the NBA? Do you think Josh Harris cares? Or does he just focus on the Commanders now? That's why you own multiple sports teams, because you can only focus on the one that's winning, and you just hope that one of them is winning. It's sort of like when you enter 2 picks into a survivor pool and you just want one to survive. The Sixers have an opportunity to be the biggest bust in the tanking period. And what I mean by that is that they had a process that everyone trusted, including Pablo, but I never thought anything of it. And they've done nothing. And now their window is totally closed. And they're done. And they just brought in Paul George, and they can't win a game. They paid Nick Nurse a lot of money to come coach it, thinking that he was the coach of the dreams of Philly fans. Imagine being up 19 and your pick of the day and thinking everything's great and then losing by 17. Welcome to the NBA. Well, tonight there's a better game. I'm going to erase all memories of watching both the Heat dismantle the Sixers and the Texans dismantle the Cowboys. Why I did split screen, just to add to my level of despondency. What a glutton for pick of the day punishment I am. 11 games under 500. It's a joke. The 2 best teams in basketball play tonight. The Cleveland Cavaliers are playing the Celtics. The Cavs are undefeated. There's a stat. They've won their first 15 games of the year, which is amazing. The last team to do that, I think, was the Warriors in 2015, if memory serves. 2016. The majority of teams, almost every team that has started the season 15-0 or better, has made the finals. I think it's every one of them, Coca. And so you'd think that the Cavaliers are going to make the finals, except they have to get through the Celtics, who are the reigning champions, who in theory are the best team. Just ask Chris Brockman. They're going to win 84 games, which is hard to do, but they're good enough to do it, apparently. Well, the Celtics are 4.5-point favorites over the Cavaliers. That seems a little heavy, doesn't it? That not only are you going to lose your first game if you're the Cavs, but you're going to lose it rather handily. And I don't see how you don't take the Cavs, which is why my pick of the day is the Celtics. Celtics, 4.5 over the Cavs. It's going to be a fun game to watch. I was so nervous the day of our stadium vote, Coca. I remember like it was yesterday, the drive down to the place where the county commission meets, parking my car, knowing that I was part of history either way, either as a colossal failure or a huge success based on what my job was for our owner. Had to get the votes. I thought I had the votes. Was pretty sure I felt good about where we were. There were a bunch of meetings I went to where I knew there was not going to be a vote because we didn't have the votes and didn't want to have a no vote. The preparation before these meetings, when you're not violating the sunshine laws in Florida, you can only meet with one public official at a time. So you meet with every one of the council members or commission members. The Tampa Bay Rays have a huge vote in St. Petersburg today. The council is meeting in St. Petersburg to decide whether or not they're going to float the bonds required for their contribution to the new stadium in St. Petersburg that was agreed upon before the election and before the hurricane. There was supposed to be a vote last Tuesday, and it got delayed. I'm not sure that Tampa has the votes anymore to get this passed in St. Petersburg. The election brought in 2 new council members, both of whom are against public financing, which is either code for give me something that I want in a quid pro quo for my yes vote, or they're a KSN, which is a Katie Sorensen no. Katie Sorensen, a Badger, a Miami-Dade commissioner who was a no vote and stayed a no vote, was always a no vote, no matter what, was a no vote. If the St. Petersburg Council does not vote to float the bonds today, the deal in St. Petersburg for a new stadium is done. It's dead. And Stu Sternberg, as the owner, is acting as though it's already dead. He actually gave a quote, which you would never do if you think you're going to get a yes vote, or, spoiler alert, if you want to get a yes vote. He said last month the county commission upended our ballpark agreement by not approving their bonds, as they promised to do. That action sent a clear message that we had lost the county as a partner. The future of baseball in Tampa Bay became less certain after that vote. I couldn't tell if Stu was doing the Snoopy dance, but I had a small feeling that maybe he was, because if you made him tell the truth, he might tell you that he really doesn't want to have a new stadium in St. Petersburg. He wouldn't mind doing some real estate development with his partners, but in theory, a new stadium in St. Petersburg has a pretty big risk of not succeeding. But then what? Relocation. The Rays are going to be another relocation story, just like the A's. And the Rays are going to have to play in a temporary facility, just like the A's. The Rays are going to have to play multiple years in a spring training facility or a minor league facility, just like the A's. The Rays and the A's have been partners through this journey for so long, and it looks like they're going to hold hands, put the car in drive, and say, Thelma, I love you. We're going over the cliff together. It remains to be seen what happens today, because I think that the bonds won't be floated, won't be agreed to. And then it remains to be seen what the quotes will be, because if you're the media, you can't let Rob Manfred off the hook. And if you are the PR person in baseball, and I know Pat Courtney's preparing him, you got to have a statement ready right now. You may even have to fly down to meet with some people or drive across from the Palm Beach area, drive across and meet with them, or send some of your top lieutenants to do so. Because if you've got them relocating to a city which is an expansion candidate, you've got a second problem. You've already taken Vegas off the table, purportedly. What, are you going to take Nashville off the table too? Then what? You're going to run out of situations. I guess maybe the White Sox get their deal done, maybe, so they don't move, which they're not going to move. Tampa doesn't get its deal done. You go to Nashville. Then you need another East Coast expansion candidate. Who else? Montreal? North Carolina? Baseball has to weigh all of this as they figure out how hard to push St. Petersburg and the council. We're going to find out early. We'll talk about it tomorrow. But I'm going to give you an official wait to see, which I believe, is this my second official wait to see, Coca? I think it is. Can you fit that in the document? I'm sorry, folks, but the Tampa Rays are leaving St. Petersburg. It's not only that they're not going to play in the Trop again, they're done in St. Petersburg. There will be no new ballpark, and I thought it was done. Hurricanes change everything. It must be good to own an asset worth $8 billion. I think if you're Steve Ross of the Dolphins, you're feeling pretty good. You've built F1 and the tennis tournament. You own the stadium, privately held stadium. You get tremendous public subsidies, which no one ever talks about. You have zero success on the field, which no one talks enough about around this country. Hasn't won a playoff game in his tenure. And yet, you cannot say his tenure has been a failure. He has increased the value of the Dolphins and the related entities. He's selling 10% of his team at a valuation purportedly of $8 billion for the team and the stadium and F1, etc., to private equity firms, taking advantage. The Buffalo Bills are doing the same thing. NFL owners are meeting in New York right now. I don't know where they're meeting. I always just assume it's New York, but it may not be. And the owners are going to vote on whether or not the Bills and Dolphins can sell 10% of their team to a private equity firm. We've covered this a lot on Nothing Personal, what the impact is of private equity investment, how bizarre I think it is, though NFL needs that pot of money in order to keep its asset valuations going higher. The NFL keeping a piece of the profit, maybe, apparently. Private equity firms wanting to diversify the assets of their underlying funds to the point that they're willing to forego annual return because these teams do not have great annual returns the way you'd expect from your fund, from your PE fund. But there's something sexy about being a limited partner. Get to go to the sideline. You get to say at every cocktail party, look at me, total BDE. The owners are definitely going to approve it. What I love is that the owners of the Bills, Terry Pegula and his wife, Kim, Pegula, thank you. Sorry. My brain is terrible at that, and I apologize. The Pegulas, they're a funny group. They're building a new stadium there in Orchard Park up in Buffalo. I don't know if you saw this, but the cost of the Bills' new stadium is up to $2.1 billion. That's $500 million in overruns already. And they're responsible for them. And the Pegulas said, hey, we're not raising this money. We're not selling part of the team because of stadium overruns. Don't be ridiculous. We're doing it to take advantage of the market, take advantage of the valuation. Are you worried that the value of your team is going to go down or that you need some cash? Now, granted, when you have to cover overruns, you go to the bank and you say, hey, I need a fund available to cover overruns. And I'll pledge collateral, I'll pledge revenue streams from the new stadium. I'll pledge some of my other personal assets, but I'm going to need a fund. Generally, you have a contingency fund. We had an overrun fund that we were ready to go, 10% of our budget, $550 million budget, put in 10%. So you got $50 million available if you need it to draw on for overruns. 10% should be the maximum. And generally, banks don't love funding overruns because you can't massage your projections just because of overruns. Because when you want to borrow extra money, you can go to the bank and say, we're adding a club to the stadium, and that club's going to generate X incremental dollars. And the bank will say, oh, I'm on board with that. I'll lend you the money to build out the sideline club because you're going to draw 1,000 people at $1,000 because you're going to let them meet Josh Allen. I'm in. But for overruns, you're basically paying more money for the same level of revenue, for the same amenities, because the price of steel goes up because you keep changing your mind on what kind of carpeting you want, or you keep moving things once they've been established. No, I'd like this where the locker room is instead. Whatever the reason is, market rate for materials, ownership decisions, lack of ownership decisions. $500 million of overruns already is almost 30% of the original budget. And I don't know where they're going to stop. Because financially, a $2.1 billion stadium, that does not make sense. There is no number of events that you can have at that stadium that makes that level of investment worthwhile to an individual or to an ownership group. It's going to get to a point with these football stadiums where, in addition to the NFL fund, which is used, socialism is used to help pay for individual stadiums, the public money is there. And you remember that it's the largest amount of public money ever given to a stadium, maybe ever, certainly in New York. Though I would argue that the Yankees and Mets together got more, but everyone acts as though they've gotten nothing, that it was all built with private money, which you know from listening to the show is not true. You know that the tax benefits that the Yankees and Mets get, the ability to give payments in lieu of taxes called pilot payments in New York, that's the same as a public subsidy. But at some point, the math is going to stop working. And the question is, what will be the result? Smaller facilities? Made for TV only facilities? There's going to be my famous inflection point conversation where at some point an ownership group just says, no mas. I'm not going to agree to that overrun. I'm changing the scope of the stadium. There is such a level of ego with football because of the valuation. The Bills, in theory, are selling up to 20% of their team to raise cash for them for overruns, though they denied it, which is ridiculous. I don't know of a bank that will give you $500 million. Just say, hey, no problem. Take it. Private equity firms, that money is required. Teams taking advantage of their valuations. These are big dollars we're talking about. Big major decisions that are being made in silos. And what fascinates me about it is that the calculus is what's changed. When owners are deciding how to allocate money, they've changed, and they believe that this sort of allocation into a stadium makes sense because they believe that's where they can get incremental revenue above all that national revenue that they get from the media. But at the end, not all teams will be able to do it, or when they do it, it won't work. And that's going to create some serious revenue disparity. But Goodell will just look at them and say, hey, it's just business. Good luck up there in Buffalo. This is nothing personal.